apology for not being there. First, an apology for not being there. I made the mistake of going on an errand with my wife this afternoon. When I came back, I was totally exhausted. I've been spending most of my last weeks lying in bed, and hopefully Thursday, when I get my MRI read, I'll have better news. I hope to make it tomorrow night because I'm not doing any errands till tomorrow night, going to the meeting. And secondly, what was the second thing I wanted to do? Well, I want to thank all of you for being there and wish you all a happy new year. So, starting with the agenda, it seems that Jill is not there yet.
She is.
She is.
She's just off
Oh,
the camera a
sorry
little
about
bit.
that. I can only see omnidirectionally.
We are full house
No,
here.
you okay? So you're all there. So that's great. Welcome to all, and I'm glad that we start our meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the November 10th, 2025 minutes. I sent you an extended agenda and an extended agenda because in the interim of the 2 months, I totally forgot A, that Steve had sent some requests for changes, and B, that I had approved those changes and sent them off to Artie, but I forgot. So I sent the wrong minutes. So if you have the extended agenda, you have the minutes, the draft minutes that we are considering. So any comment on the agenda and the minutes?
Just the two misspellings of Jessica's name. The first is in the present line of the attendance. Both the first and last name are misspelled, and just the last name is misspelled in the respectfully submitted by line.
Well,
I
I
don't know if
blame
they're-
both of us for that and apologize.
No problem. Thank you. Accepted.
So we need to correct that, and there you go. Okay, so let's do something that makes sense. Come on, not responding. Okay. No. Oh, that was the second thing. Can I cajole someone to take minutes?
Are you good?
Yes, sure. I gotta start bringing my computer on for these meetings. But you got it.
Here.
Yeah, perfect. I'll do that.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. And when you send me the minutes, please spell your name correctly.
You got it.
That's what it was.
You got it.
Okay, so are there any comments
Just
on the minutes?
noticing- Sorry,
besides-
just noticing. Sorry, Marty, I'm just noticing, Rick, because it's up on the screen. I'm assuming Steve Matthews spells his last name with two T's. That's just a guess. I could be wrong.
Well, it's worth checking out.
Okay.
I don't remember offhand. I should, but don't. I know him long enough.
That's what I figured.
So, Jessica, please mark those two things that I will
You
have to
got it.
change when I get the minutes. Okay.
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
Okay, has been approved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I assume it's unanimous. I haven't heard anything else.
I'm gonna abstain as I do when I'm not here. You know that.
Okay, with
Jill
one
is
abstention,
abstaining.
one abstention, not for cause, but because.
Whatever, Marty. We have to have this conversation every single time.
Okay, so I can skip down now after the minutes. Chairperson's report. I don't think I reported back to this. I know I didn't because it took place afterward. So I just want to put on the record that following a member of the board being told that they were ineligible to vote on an item concerning the community board issue. And I questioned why that decision was offered to her. So okay. Steve is coming in and somebody else joining. Okay. Following that, I contacted COIB and I said, how come? And we exchanged emails and they put me off for a month or so. The lawyers at the COIB said they could not respond differently to me. They had to bring it before the full board, which I think is 5 or 7 members of the Conflict of Interest Board, and they would make a final decision. Well, after a month had gone by and I hadn't heard anything, I contacted them again and I spoke with Ethan Carrier, General Counsel, and Alice Kipp, who we all know and sends his regards. And I challenged why that person was not allowed to vote. And I questioned the whole concept of geography was one thing. How far do you have to be before you have a presumed conflict of interest with respect to financial interest? If the theory is if we put those lights up, it would impact the resale value of that person's property. How do we know that's true? And the document that the COIB puts out concerning a store owner, I think a bar owner, and a bar owner down the street is whether or not that person could vote. The answer was yes, because any assumption that there would be a decrease in business because of the competition was purely, quote, speculative. Well, how do you know if your resale value is going to go up or down due to the lighting? You're purely speculating. And isn't that the same thing? I also questioned how far away do you have to be? And I used the example of the Willowbrook consent decree when group homes were going around and lots of people were screaming their property values will go down if a home was the same floor, the same block, the same neighborhood. Again, all speculative. So how can they say here it's okay and there it's not? How much geography is involved? I got an answer that there is no yellow line. That's the word they used. They could say specifically, this is when you've crossed that line. And so it's a case by case basis. I got nowhere with that, but they did admit that given the facts as I presented them, they might have decided differently. Well, that's somewhat after the fact now. So any questions on those conversations? Second item I have here, a request.
Marty, you've got
Marty, question.
a
Yes,
question from Jess.
So what does that mean regarding the vote? I know it was substantial, it was like overwhelmingly positive for the lights, but do we have to then update that vote or like, no?
no,
Okay, I don't know.
they didn't change their opinion. They're saying had I addressed them, and there's an issue there. I mean, if I called them up and said I have a question concerning a member who lives around the corner, and these are the issues as I see them, they might have responded differently. I never saw the original letter, but they are always concerned about. They're always concerned about confidentiality. So while we talked about it, they would not be specific about it because they felt an obligation not to not to discuss that issue, not to discuss that person's issue with me. but I still think they made a wrong judgment. And if you have any sense of the geography where this person lives and where the field is with the lights, I strongly doubt that the lights will have impact on that person's property. And B, we're talking about a minor portion of the year when the same thing takes place all of the rest of the year during baseball season. So the fact that 3 additional months might have a parking issue, 3 additional months may have a noise issue, 3 additional months, it doesn't change everything. So again, if I had approached it and if they would have spoken with me, I would have hoped that the person would have been allowed to vote, although, as Jessica has pointed out, it would not have made any difference. And I've had that discussion with the person. Second item on my report, I was asked, therefore I'm sharing with everyone, I was asked where in our bylaws does it say when minutes have to be distributed after a meeting? And my response was, it's not in our bylaws, but it is in the open meetings law. Public Officers Law, section Article 7, section 100, 106 concerns minutes, and minutes of meetings of all public bodies shall be available within 2 weeks. And minutes have to be available within 1 week if there was an executive session. And I'm not going to go into executive session, but I was asked, I answered, and I'm sharing with you. Questions to be considered. I will allow Chuck to talk about this because Chuck has requested this item. And in our bylaws, committees, section 7, sub 2 and sub 3 talks about the land use committee and this committee as being comprised only of the members of the community board. The question that Chuck is raising, and I let him talk, he does better than I do, but the question Chuck is raising is, in this unique situation where we're going to have a brain drain of board members who are going to age out of membership, should the exceptions be made to allow for those brains to still be utilized on these two committees, or specifically land use, rather than just say goodbye, we don't need you anymore? Chuck, the floor is yours.
The issue arose because about 15, 20 years ago, the then chairman was trying to put through an issue as to which a majority of the board thought there was a conflict for him. He was running for chair, and there was some other stuff. And the meetings were being packed. As a result, people came in to attend meetings that had land use questions, zoning and the like, that had never been seen before and were never seen again afterwards. And they were allowed to vote. And so we raised that as a specific issue, and this provision was passed. There is an alternative to the brain drain, and that is to allow at least outgoing, temporarily or permanently furloughed members who have been on the board for an extended period of time to serve as non-voting members of the committee. This way you get the benefit of their thinking and the like, albeit that they can't vote. That at least would be consistent with it, but so would be the idea of allowing them for 1 year to vote. I have to tell you, somebody read off to me the list of people who over a span of about 2 to 3 years would be off the board for 1 year and may or may not get appointed thereafter. And it constituted a total wipeout of the history of the board.
So therefore you are suggesting,
Either that they be allowed for and do it on the basis of a permission change for a period of 2 years, or do it for a longer period, to vote as members of the committee, or at least make them automatically members of the committee they last served on for a 2-year period or 1-year period.
anyone have any thoughts on this subject?
Steve has Alexander.
First of all, my understanding is that as the bylaws currently read, a community committee member may vote as a member of the committee once they're qualified. So if there was this, Chuck, I think, I'm not sure if you did talk about voting privileges.
Yeah.
I think that if we eliminated the exclusions, however they're worded, then it would be sort of business as usual as it is with other committees. And can someone remind me how many meetings one has to attend consecutively?
3.
Okay, so I guess it could mean that for the first 3 meetings of the year, that person would not be able to vote as a committee member. Thereafter, they would be. I would be supportive of that change for the reason that Marty and Chuck described. I would also be supportive of a sunset to this modification if that's possible, and it may not be, because if we're eliminating something from the bylaws, which in this case is an exclusion, it's hard for it to come back in that way. I'm not sure how it would be, but in any event, I think a trial period for this of anywhere from 2 or a couple more years, in light of the fact that the term limits are really only biting for the first time next year, I think is a good idea to see how it would work. So I'd be in favor of eliminating the exclusion,
Right.
but only for 2 to 4 years.
Marty?
I see no reason why it can't be for a sunset provision. Why not?
Oh, I guess you'd write it into
Steve, are you chairing?
Marty.
Marty, when
I'm here, yep. You wanna, go ahead, Sergio.
you know, I would agree with Steve. But frankly, I would go further. I would just say that if we eliminate the restriction, the board chair still has the board chair and the committee chair still have the ability to decide if someone is going to actually be a community committee member. And I like the idea of opening it up, frankly. If there are interested people who show up at meetings and who want to participate, I don't think it should be limited just to people who are past board members. I think this is I think the way Steve put it, I agree with it without the sunset clause. It's still up to the board. It's still up to the board chair. It's still up to the committee chair. I think that's the simplest way to do it. That's the neatest way to do it, and that's it. Appearance-wise, it's the least appearing self-serving way to do it. That it's not just it's not just because we're on our way out. So anyway, that's my thought.
I think with or without
Laura? Laura? I see Laura raised her hand.
She's still muted.
Laura, you're recognized, but you're muted.
No, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so I wanted to just say that according to the current bylaws, all community committee members, their term ends in June, and they have to be reappointed by the chair of the committee and the chair of the board. And that's probably would be the same for land use, if this change goes into effect.
Point of information, I thought that we had addressed, Marty, you're gonna remember this. I thought we had not too long ago addressed the question of what happens to a community committee member who qualifies in year one. And so from the fourth meeting on, they're a voting member of the committee and shows up in September the next year. Do they have to requalify and experience a 3-month delay? And I thought that we interpreted it as not requiring a requalification if they appear the next September. But I could be
Well,
mistaken.
when I was chair, I checked with the committee chairs and I said, do you still want this person? Are you renominating this person? Please do. And so they didn't have to go through 3 more consecutive meetings the following year. It
But it was
was,
discretion of the committee chair.
yes,
Okay,
it was, and say you'd have a new committee chair and maybe they wanted that person, maybe they didn't want, that's up to their discretion.
Okay.
But that it was automatic. And I just also want to say, because there was some confusion about this at one point when I was chair, just attending 3 meetings in a row does not mean that you are a community committee member. As Sergio said, you have to be recommended by the committee chair and approved by the board chair. So you have all this, going into it. And I just want to clarify, I had a lot of community members come and go during my tenure.
Let me ask, may I,
Yeah, please
Marty?
go ahead.
Let me ask this question. We have a rule that the former chair of the board is automatically on the executive committee
For 3 years.
for 3 years. I don't honestly see why. Let me give you this, put a name to this so you can understand. David Gelman was attending meetings. I don't know if he's there tonight or not, but he's been a consistent attendee at various committee meetings he was on before and contributing. And that's what made me focus on it. It seems to me that the simple thing to do is to say a person who was a committee member and is off by reason of term limits. My recollection is they're off for 1 year, can serve for 1 year as an ex officio if the chairman of the committee and the chairman of the board agree. Just do it that way.
I lost the sound.
We're still here. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Yes.
We weren't speaking. That's why there was no sound.
Did you hear my deathless prose?
I heard
Yes,
your proposal, then it cut off.
All right.
You're
Chuck, I
suggesting,
think
a modification to the degree that the person who is off the board, you're being very, very specific, off
Yeah.
the board for term limits and has the opportunity to reapply, doesn't guarantee they get on,
Right.
to reapply, would then be a board member. So
Right.
that we're talking about,
Not a board member. No. If a person who is off the board
right, it would be
for
a
1
committee.
year could get back a year later. So why not keep the value of that person's talents by saying that for that 1 year that he's off at a minimum, he has the opportunity of serving on a committee if the chair of the committee and the chairman of the board agree. Period. Makes it a very narrow proposal.
Well, I would suggest narrowing it perhaps somewhat further. And I'm not 100% sure I would support that, but I think if something like that were to be in the bylaws, I would suggest that a person who has served as a board member and is term limited in that first year of their being term limited off, they may apply to serve as a community committee member of any committee they sat on in the
Correct.
last year of service with the permission of, and then, requiring the normal approval of the committee chair and the board chair.
I would support that.
I think I would support that. Number one, we're talking about a year of, essentially what we're doing is waiving the 3-month requirement of 3 continuous consecutive meeting attendances before that person can vote. So they essentially can hit the ground running from a voting standpoint. They could always attend the meeting, and it being a committee meeting, they could speak, maybe not as readily as a appointed board member. So I think I would be in favor of that, as long as it were for 1 year. And the only impact was that the 3 consecutive meeting requirement were waived, and that they were applying or requesting to be a community committee member of one of the committees on which they served in their last year of appointed service.
I like that.
That leaves the problem that the person for whom this is being developed would not be able to enjoy it until 3 months from now, leaving them 2 months for the rest of the year.
No. I understand that's because he resigned or didn't seek reappointment. The concept is, assume he had term limited off the board with nothing else involved, and the committee chair and the board chair both agreed he should be afforded the opportunity of serving on a committee on which he had previously served. I don't see what the minus is.
I guess we'd have to, if you really wanted to be careful, you'd probably say that service could begin in April, if approved, because I think when you are term limited off, just as when you're not reappointed, I don't know how the statute would be interpreted, but do people cease serving as a result of term limits in March? That's what happens when someone's not reappointed, or in June. I don't think we've experienced it, so we haven't had a chance to think about it.
I think maybe the answer is to say when he's term limited off, period. That will do it without defining the month.
Good point.
So the question is now before us. Sergio had suggested a wider possibility, and two of you now have identified a very narrow interpretation. So I'm open to what the committee believes the direction we should be going in.
So I think you identify the issue properly. My concern is that doing it this way, we might, we're almost naming ourselves. You might as well say, well, Sergio doesn't have to do this as he's just about to be term limited out. And I like the idea of having the chair and having the committee chair have discretion, and we can accomplish the same goal by inviting more community participation. And it's still an application process. What we might do is give the chair the ability for prior board members to wait, or for good cause to waive the 3-month the 3-meeting rule.
Well, the proposal is that the bylaw change would actually incorporate the waiver already.
Right, but I'm saying another way to do it is to just expand it and create a way that we wouldn't have to have the 3-meeting rule for good cause, or however else you want to say it. It will accomplish the same goal, if that's what we're concerned. And if we're concerned about, I think we're getting overly concerned with the first 3 months, with what happens in the first 3 months, and voting in the committee those first 3 months, if that's the issue.
may I suggest we try a piece of this as a first step and see how it works? Because you may very well see that the number of people who take advantage of it is minimal and it isn't going to be a significant issue.
Which way do you mean, Charles?
I am
Like open it up and then maybe nobody will apply, or just keep it the narrow focus like a.
I
Which way
like
you go?
I like the narrow focus. I'm willing to go for the broader focus. Um, I go either way. I just want to get people working. The ones who have been on have demonstrated, to my satisfaction at least, that they are interested in the community and in the community board's work. If you make it a broader situation, they haven't made that kind of demonstration.
I understand.
I agree.
So the resolution, if there is one now, is for a specific, very tight definition of those who were not, who were, I'll use the word forced off the board because of term limits. And we'd like to give them the opportunity to continue to serve in the hope that they will reapply and be reappointed.
I like that.
So it's limited, the provision would do two things. This originally was brought up simply about the exclusion of land use and LRE from the existing the existing regime. And so we're thinking of going further. We're not
That
only,
That's my point. I'd like to see people who were here, who worked, who served on the board, who served on a committee, have a bridge period where they can serve in the committee and thereby demonstrate that they're entitled to serve another appointed term.
Right, but to Steve's question, I think, Steve, it appears that, yeah, these two committees, because of the limitation of appointed board members, something really has to happen. With the other committees, there'd be a way for me to participate on the committees I serve on, other than these two.
you would just have to wait 3 months.
I might have to wait 3 months, right, but there's a mechanism. With land use and LRE, there is no mechanism for us not on the board participating.
So that's a way of saying, Marty, the choice is, are we simply going to remove the restriction for these two committees? Or only remove the restriction for these two committees and, innovate and take care of the people who are term limited off and have a waiver of the 3-month requirement. So that's two things.
Right, for
A
all.
waiver of the 3-month requirement and the elimination of the restriction of these two committees. That's a question.
My feeling at the moment is that there's no
Jessica has a
need.
point of information.
Right, I just wanna clarify, is the idea that the term limited members will continue to serve in this bridge period as non-voting members or as voting members?
As
Voting committee members.
Which gives them a vote
So yes, as voting members.
Right,
Okay.
of the committee.
of the
It's
committee,
my
not of the board.
It's my sense here is that if we come up with appropriate wording and identify exactly what we mean, there's no reason to void these two sections. A person who is interim can serve on either of these two committees with the new wording, but generally the committees are limited to only board members, so there's no reason to void these.
Well, they won't be board members, so you do have to make there has to be some language that explains that these two, otherwise these two committees are simply not gonna be on,
Right,
they'll be off limits.
Right,
So
well,
there'll have to be some language.
the verbiage has to say that any committee, under these conditions, a person in that interim year can continue to serve on the committee for which he or she was a member. And
Right.
that will include this.
Upon the appointment of the committee chair and the board chair.
right.
At the discretion.
I take that
Yeah.
as
Chuck,
a given.
I would,
And it's really, that may apply, we have to be
Right.
clear that it's all hinges on the term limited former committee member.
Right.
But you
Fine.
I'm, and maybe it's just my leaning towards expansion of things, of certain things. That we're saying that former board members are allowed to apply to any committees. I would say possibly any committees that they've been a member of.
Yes.
Not necessarily the
The
committee,
last.
not necessarily the last committee you were on, because I was a member of public safety a couple of years back. Now that I don't have to attend now that I don't have to attend a board meeting, I may want to go back
Mhm.
and sit on public safety. I've got knowledge, I've got experience, but I would expand it to at least to say any committee the person has served on. Because
That's fine.
I was the chair of economic development. I'm very interested. I just don't have the bandwidth right now.
Mhm.
Chuck, can I implore upon you to spend a few minutes now uh, uh, proposing such a resolution, given all that you have heard?
I suggest we try it offline, Marty, because it's pretty involved.
Yep.
Well, if you, okay, it's fine with me. So this is tabled to next month.
Well, I'm
And
willing to work with Chuck offline to, but you can vote on the principles and then it can be drafted.
And then ratified at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Right. Even if it's with the second at the meeting, I think.
Yeah, there's time.
Yeah, this time, if we all agree.
This is not pressing.
So Jessica, do you have all of the provisions?
No, so from what I understand so far, we are tabling a resolution proposal regarding term limited members to continue to serve as voting committee members, but not vote as full board members. So that means they can vote on the committee level, but they will not vote on the board level,
Correct.
right?
That's already the definition of community committee member.
Okay,
That's
so,
the way
you know,
it currently is.
Right.
Okay, and it, you know, and then I guess the last one was, I serve as voting committee members on committees,
On any committee that they previously served.
on any committees that they've previously served.
Yeah,
Right.
I would suggest that it be any.
Subject to the discretion of the chair and the board chair.
Subject to discretion.
I mean, I personally,
Committee.
Mhm.
I want to suggest that because of the optics of this about sort of, rescuing people from term limits for good reasons, but still, because of the optics, I would really like to see it be, something like, any committee they served on as appointed board members in the last X years. There were people who have been on the board, some of whom were on this call probably for decades.
Mhm.
Many decades, not just 2 decades. And so I really think that, it should be relevant to losing the expertise that the board just had,
Say the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's fine.
Within
And then
all
one of the-
I wanted Jessica to do is have the points so that we write up the resolution, we make sure we hit the points.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
and
should've put
I
that
can
in there.
communicate with Jessica and send her bullet points so that, because one of the things in here, in this provision, which is otherwise a new provision in the bylaws, it's gonna have to say that this will apply to all committees, notwithstanding the limitation in section
Right.
7,
Right.
2 and 3 or something.
I think you
I
do
think
with
we-
the
I think we need to be very
do it
clear.
with the language by saying all committee without exclusion.
Yeah,
Yeah, it has to be very clear, because if we've
Yeah.
had that before.
yeah, I was actually would refer to those.
Yeah, I was gonna say, name them, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question. Would it help to title this member as advisory or something else? So then it's, how do you track that? Nobody's like, putting a clock on everyone per se. I don't know.
Why do you have to track it? The guy or the gal is a member of the committee, period.
Well, there was an understanding that it would have a sunset time.
Yeah,
Well, that's a question. I mean, Sergio was expressing the view that it shouldn't be sunsetted because, I mean, the board can revisit it and get rid of it, but it shouldn't be sunsetted or else it looks like the Sergio, Chuck, Marty, Steve amendment.
Right.
Laura amendment.
Oh,
No, I think it's good because
Sylvia,
people are gonna term out every year eventually, as things happen, so.
right.
This issue will come up again, and the board chair and the committee chair will have the discretion whether they employ it or
Well,
not.
it should be better than that. If it's really a disaster, it should be.
Well, I'm saying if they have the discretion to get rid of it as well, but they also have the discretion to use it. And
Right.
if they feel it's a disaster, they just won't use it.
There is one
Can I
issue
ask a question?
go ahead, Sylvia.
And then you got
Uh,
Laura.
Yeah,
No, Laura's hand has been up since the beginning. We just have to
no,
put
no,
Laura's
I
hand
didn't lower it
down.
before, but it is up now. But Sylvia, go ahead. I'm not on the committee.
no, I feel that it would be a good idea to have someone who has been on a committee as land use or LRE with the knowledge that they have, because we always get new members and they have to learn the ropes first. And with the fact that we're all going to be removed soon, that fills a gap. However, is this in any way, can that be thought of as a slur against the borough president? Because she's appointing people and you're putting people on to extend their time on the committees. And although I think it's a good idea, I don't know if she would think that that was a
but
good
it's
idea.
only at the committee level. It's not at the board level. That's the distinction. What is the distinction between the board and the committee? The committee's function is to generate ideas, to propose on the basis of knowledge or research concepts. The board's idea is to ratify or to disapprove that concept, not to be the generator.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah,
Generally
Sylvia,
speaking,
to be
That's true.
clear, this is just a way of utilizing and clearing a slightly less obstacle pathway to using the community committee member role that already exists. So any of these term limited board members could always apply to be a community committee member, but they encounter a 3-month delay till they can vote. That's the only difference.
and Sylvia,
And these two
Sylvia,
committees.
generally speaking, the borough president's office will respond 99% of the time if it's in your bylaws. Go back to your bylaws. So it's our
Uh-huh.
in this case, it's totally our decision. But I want to
see.
point
Okay.
out when you say every committee, I've only pointed out here land use and law, rules, and ethics. But the executive committee is also limited as to who may sit on it. So we don't want to say all committees, say standing
Right.
committees.
Yeah,
Yes, that's important. Jess, could you note that?
I am writing it down now.
All right. I haven't heard from Steve or Jill. Anybody else? Any input?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, along the same lines as Sylvia is, because it's, really looks like an end run around term limits. I'm wondering, what is the difference between these people and our community committee members?
You want to encourage them to spend the time. My point being, some people may just say, I've done this. I'm not going to go through the hassle of being on probation, and I don't need to work that hard. You want to encourage them. Look, let's take a look at how many committee members, board members we have now sitting around. And it's not just now, it's every year, who it turns out do not make a contribution. These folks
Yes.
have done that. They've demonstrated they've made a contribution.
I understand that, Chuck, but I guess I'm a little concerned about the fact that I don't hear any verbiage about that in this proposal. And anybody can apply to be a committee member, is that true?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
if
you
we-
don't,
Well,
you then,
these are not anybody. So Jessica said something a little earlier that, kind of resonated for me as well, that we don't call these people community committee members.
No, we are.
I'm expressing a point that.
call them ex officio. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference.
Right.
Really, I like the word advisory because that's also expressing why we're doing this. Some sort of language that expresses why, other than running around the term limit.
Well, I think we can have whereas clauses in the resolution. and say,
That's
"Oh,
right.
No, I'm saying that.
But we're talking about the language of the bylaw. The bylaw doesn't talk about policy. The bylaw just is what is.
Right, but I'm saying I don't think this is the same as.
Someone who was
community committee
appointed.
members.
I don't
I
think-
mean,
I
Jill,
think the optics are better to use community committee member so that this is largely business as usual. I think it's a better optic in terms of our president running around the idea of this city council passing and the mayor signing term limits. I think it's better to have work within the existing framework and not create an emeritus role, because that does sound to me like, oh yeah, you passed term limits, but we got emeritus. That I think is more problematic. Same issue you raised, but I think that cuts the other way.
but Jill, with the exception of these two committees, anyone, any community member can be a community member of a committee. So all this is really doing is opening up these two committees.
No, it gets rid of which to some people may be a barrier for their wanting to serve, to their having to redo a probationary period of 3 months.
You're giving them an exemption, correct? But the fact
Right,
is, with the exception of these two committees, anyone can be a committee member, a community member. Now we're allowing them to be here, and we're avoiding the 3 months.
Look,
So
let me
we're
make
giving
my
two privileges.
let me make my basic point. There are a number of forces that have been at work. I can't tell whether it'll be continued by this administration to weaken even further the community boards, and in doing so, make it less attractive for people to work on them, and in the hope that they will go away. One member of the mayor's commission, who's involved in this sort of stuff, said exactly that. We don't need community boards, but we can't get rid of them in one fell swoop.
I sent an email with some verbiage. to everyone.
Can I move the agenda? Just want to ask Steve if he has a comment, and beyond that, are we in principle in favor of this? And then Chuck and I will work on the wording for next month. So Steve?
No, I have my list of bullets that I was gonna send to Jessica. Any term limited member may apply to serve as a member of any standing committee, including LRE and land use, notwithstanding section so-and-so, without satisfying the 3-month consecutive attendance requirement. And if they apply,
That's pretty much what you said and what you just said.
I didn't even finish the word, but yeah.
This I just sent something, Marty, Chuck and Sylvia.
Well, you could have finished, right?
sorry.
And then we could read yours and then,
Sorry, Steve.
So anyway, no, and the only point I'm making is that I am in agreement with everything, with the way this has evolved. You're, as Marty, as you succinctly put it, you're giving, only in the first year after term limits, you're giving a term limited person two incentives to continue to contribute to the board. They can avoid the 3 consecutive attendance requirement, and they can have access as community committee, they can serve as community committee members on LRE and land use. Again, always subject to the discretion of the chairs of those committees and the approval of the board chair. And I didn't say it because it's a very long sentence, but we'll work it in. This would apply to any standing committee upon which, in which, or that they served as a member of in the past 5 years of their appointed term on the board.
Yeah, well, standing is important because being a member of the executive committee doesn't give you access to this proposal. But when I said Steve, I meant Steve Matthews.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was talking a lot.
I'm like,
and I have a
Hi,
question
sorry,
for
Marty.
Steve definitely spoke, but okay.
Right.
Steve, any comments?
I think what you're talking about, pending the language, is entirely reasonable.
I have a point.
Go ahead.
I guess
Yes, sir.
information. So one thing I am concerned about with this is because so many of the term limited members have been in several committees, like that they would somehow over voice the new voices of members. So like, for example, if you guys all decide to be a part of one committee and then that committee, say you're four, and then that committee's only 7, right? Like now I feel like that's not fair to the new committee members where, they are now precedented with relationships that existed before them, understanding and wisdom that exists, ahead of them. And then they're not, as much as they could discuss openly, they're not necessarily empowered to like push together their own voice and their new voice to these committees. So how can we,
The
be
chair,
supportive?
simply
Yeah.
the chair just doesn't allow that to happen. Or the board chair.
Well,
Simple.
more to the point, Chuck, the chair of the committee doesn't let 4 people join a
Correct.
3-person.
Correct.
See what I'm saying? The new chair of that committee.
Right, so if you're chairing whatever committee, you've got 3 members, you're not gonna let the 5 of us in.
Yeah.
And that goes back to identifying who is a term limited member versus who's a new member or who's a committee member. I think like it makes, how would a new board member or new chair who maybe isn't as experienced know whether or not there's some kind of bias, potential bias.
Well, everyone would be very obvious because someone is going to be saying, I hereby apply to get the 3 meeting attendance requirement waived.
Mhm.
There's only one person who can do that, someone who's term limited,
Okay,
and they can only do it once in the beginning.
It
of
is
the
my
year.
hope, Jessica, is my hope that we are not creating a monster as you described, that this has been going on for years. New members have to adjust and find their place within committees. And if a committee chair is doing its job, what you're fearing should not happen. Laura, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah,
and go down.
I just wanted to respond to Jessica. It's it's not a new situation. When I was chair, I said no to an applicant for committee chair for a committee that was a very small committee and already had 2 community committee members. And when I pointed out the proportion that this would not be good because of it was a small committee and they really, so it's something you raised a very important point, and it's something that old and new the board will grapple with. The proportion, the size of the committee. You don't want to never have any new members from the community. But that's where the interaction between the board chair and the chair of the board are just very, very important. And you look at all those things like numbers. You don't want more voting members who are not appointed board members, after all, on a committee. So you raised a valid point, and I just wanted to flesh it out a little bit from my experience.
And it's something that can be a danger even without this whole term.
Right. It's always been an issue.
You could have
Right.
a very strong organization in a community that's like, let's say, pro a certain kind of housing or something like that, and they could technically flood a committee with community committee members.
So moving the agenda, is there anyone who thinks we should not pursue this direction? Hearing no voices, then Chuck and I will get together and try and come up with language for next month's meeting. I'm
Okay.
moving the agenda. A question was asked of whether or not waiting for
Geography.
COIB, waiting for COIB to deposit on whether or not we can or cannot do anything could we short circuit that by establishing our own rules and making them tell us we can't do it rather than waiting for them to come up and say we can't. Now, I don't remember whether or not I sent this to you first. I think you have it on the extended agenda where I got this way back April 2025, not that far ago, when I questioned, really this came out of the Parks Committee in general, because a candidate for mayor who fell away rather quickly, but a candidate for mayor had the audacity to suggest that Van Cortlandt golf course would be a great housing project area, and the Parks Committee was somewhat aghast by that and wanted to speak out against the concept of alienation of parks, and COIB notified the parks quite vociferously, you can't bring this up because a candidate is involved.
But they admitted they made a mistake.
And that would show preference either way. So again, I wrote a long letter to COIB saying, what are you talking about? And I broke it down into various sections, but ultimately, I mean, they totally reversed themselves. And this goes to something Sergio raised at an executive committee meeting. We can talk about legislation. We can talk about who sponsored the legislation. We can talk about anything that legitimately involves our community board. We just cannot hint or give the impression that we're in support or against a particular candidate. So, as the buildings, our housing committee, and just endorsed something that our state senators were doing. They came out, mentioned the name, we like your legislation, we support you in doing that. That's totally fair game. But a comment of how stupid you are, we got a really dumb legislator who brought this thing up, that's not appropriate. So
Can't do that anymore?
we can't make negative comments about the legislator. We can make negative comments about the legislation.
Oh, that'll be a change. Okay.
So if a legislator who is ours or not ours says, offering legislation to do X, Y, Z, and we think that's really dumb, we can lobby the city council, the legislator, whomever, saying we disagree with your premise. And as I did with our state senator, when I thought he wanted to reduce the percentage of the quorum attendance at a meeting down to 25% rather than 50%, I we challenged his legislation. We didn't challenge him, and he ignored us, and it never happened anyway. But so going back to it was Sergio's question, how can we insulate ourselves? Where is it? How can we insulate ourselves in advance of COIB coming in? And I'm not quite sure there is such a method, but I'm open.
There is a method. There is a method, but it's a cumbersome one. I think COIB's interpretation, I've looked at it, has absolutely no constitutional or statutory foundation. Now, do we want to tell them we think that? And if they would like to reiterate it, that'll set the groundwork for a lawsuit. Do we want to go to that?
They backed off on that.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is
the
not an
letter-
issue anymore. This
with
is
the
no
letter-
longer an issue.
With the letter, they are saying we could have complained about the concept of Parks Department or the Van Cortlandt Park being turned into a housing project. We had the right to do that. They've backed off. And this letter says to us that with any future question of legislation, we can lobby either way. The only time we can't lobby is that silliness with charter revisions. Once it's on the
Well-
ballot, we can't lobby.
Well, maybe.
Likewise, believe that would not survive.
Sergio?
So, well, yeah, a couple of things. When I brought it up, well, I don't feel comfortable with the use of the term lobby. We don't lobby. We take a position, right? We'll pass a resolution. But I think if we put something in our ethical guidance to address like these issues that have come up a couple of times, nothing's going to fully insulate somebody if the COIB says, well, you committed a violation. But at least if I'm defending myself or someone else, I'd like to have, the ethical guidance from internally from our board to say, this is what's appropriate, this is what's not. And once we pass that, send that to COIB and say, unless you have a different opinion, this is what we're going to do. They'll probably never get back to us. But I think that's one thing we can do to somewhat insulate our members from this worry and not have to have the whole back and forth that just happened where a member reaches out directly and they get told something off the cuff that's completely wrong. Thank you.
I agree.
Well, I'd be happy to have you draft something, Sergio.
Okay, we'll sit down, Marty. We'll email back and forth on a few issues that need to be that have come up, and then we'll handle it from there.
Yeah, I
Fine.
just, and Marty, I know you brought this up here, and I thought this was resolved last spring. The issue that you just put in the expanded agenda, and you did a great job on it. But I think I think we've gotten where we needed to go on that. And I have no concerns over the position that they took and then retracted. They got some things wrong, and that happens from time to time. I do have more concern about the issue that just came up a few months ago in the election, where there's a charter revision item on the ballot. And I think that another way of approaching that, because I agree with Chuck that it's not a well-founded opinion on the part of COIB, even though I think that their intentions are honorable. I think that one way to handle it, and I said as much a few months ago, is simply for the board to pass a resolution taking a position on a particular charter amendment proposal that we think is on a subject of public concern that we as a community board would normally take up and discuss. And if that is a problem for COIB or the law department, then they can come and tell us that. And that will pose the controversy that we can have settled in court if need be. But I would make it a test. And that's what I suggested we do
I
2 months ago. That's the most efficient way to raise the issue, not with a kind of a declaration and more discussion. Just put, get the issue out there. So,
Stephen, we had that situation either last year or the year before on something. Law department sent a letter, you can't take a position on something or other. What I did was I wrote a letter to the law department, to the corporation counsel. I said, that position is unfounded. You have no citation of authority to support it. It's the gut reaction of an individual assistant corporation counsel. Would you like us to challenge it in court now? They never, ever responded. I followed up. Again, they ignored it. This was done because they didn't want a response at that time to a de Blasio charter revision proposal. I don't remember what it was.
I think it was term limits.
It may have been.
No, it may have been the recent one on,
No, I
you're
think
saying
it
de
was-
Blasio, but,
That's why I said it was term limits.
well, okay, so,
And we backed down.
my,
So I'm not saying you did, Chuck, but the fact of the matter is, we didn't pass a resolution saying that's a bad idea.
this
assuming
may
that-
be,
Will of
this
the
may be
board.
relevant or not, because I haven't heard it a second time. But I did hear that in his closing days, Mayor Adams appointed a charter revision commission that apparently our new mayor can't prevent or stop. So
Correct.
this issue may be coming up again as to what the silliness they put in there. I fully agree with Chuck. I was not involved with SROs, but the concept of what's happening in Van Cortlandt Village is scary because they're going to turn that whole community upside down between SRO apartments and or tiny apartments, but knocking down private house after private house.
Where are we in the are we still we're in the chairperson's report? Or are we in questions to be considered?
We're past that.
Questions to be considered.
I think we're up to.
So then the issue is keep our ears open, and perhaps the question of being able to challenge what's on the charter, what the Charter Revision Commission comes up with, may not be moot, may be around the corner again,
Oh, it will be.
or over and over again. But it strikes me as from what
I think, the answer to that is a recommendation that provision of the charter be repealed.
well,
That'll confront it directly.
the thing is, I think it's gifts. We're by virtue of lobbying, church didn't like lobbying. By virtue of taking a position, we are giving a gift to the side. If we use community board resources, we are giving a gift to the side that we're in favor of.
And you remember what we did on one of the issues? We moved outside the board offices to vote on it, so that to make it clear that we weren't using it.
Sure, we had little to no influence by doing that.
I agree.
Agreed.
Listen, at the rate we're going, community boards will, within a span of a couple of years, be either a thing of the past or totally deprived of any standing.
which a couple of agencies have already made obvious. I'm thinking of Department of Buildings. I'm thinking of what's the other one with the
City
environment
plan,
protection?
DEP.
DEP. City planning definitely turned us off a long time ago.
DOT.
Them too. Moving the agenda then. Sergio, I turn to you. As you all know, the previous committee established by the board chair, it has been dissolved. A new committee was established. I believe Sergio is chair of that committee. So I asked him, would he please advise us on how that new committee is operating?
Marty, may I tell you, I've got to be excused. I've got to take care of something. So please forgive me for ducking out. Okay.
That's the Pearl.
That's the issue I've got to take care of. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Marty.
Bye, Chuck.
I mean, bye, Chuck.
Sergio?
Sorry.
So we're proceeding with doing our outreach and hopefully we'll have something in within the next month and a half by way of a report, and we'll be bringing it back. Bring it back to exec and to the whole board, and if there is a need for any we'll bring it back here as well. If there's a need for bylaw amendments, then we'll be requesting Ellery's help in crafting that.
What's the name of the committee again?
It's a working group on restructuring the committees, and I thought it was restructuring committees and board efficiency, but
Doge?
it's basically Doge. I was calling it Make Community Board Great Again.
Mhm.
But it
Aren't
is
you- Aren't you on dangerous grounds?
yes. So that's I'll leave my report right there. Thank you, Jessica.
The acronym is just mumbling.
Yeah, there's no good acronym. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Sergio. Latest in COIB. I'm sure I sent most of these out, but you got it in the extended agenda and the extended agenda.
I think the December 30th stuff may be new, but I'm not suggesting we do a responsive reading at the committee. I'm just saying, I think that I hadn't seen that.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself as well. I'm in a lot of pain right now.
So.
I'm sorry, Jill. Are you okay getting home?
Yeah, my car is right outside, but I need medication at this point.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
All right, take care, everybody.
It's
Unless you need me for anything
Yeah.
else.
No,
think they're
we're
past the
voting out. Yeah,
hard
no
stuff.
vote. We're not voting on anything. We're tabling it. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I thought there was something relevant that I wanted to bring up.
Oh, sorry, Marty. We should not have spoken over you.
No. He's just talking about highlighting COI.
Oh, okay. I thought he meant Jill's presence or something.
An assistant dean in New York City, second job. Okay, the same nonsense, second jobs. But there was something I'm sure I wanted to point out. Next master's office. Okay, people trying to serve two bastards at one time when they aren't allowed to do that.
Do what?
He said two masters. Having two
They
employees.
work-
Masters.
I heard bathrooms. So.
I heard something with a B.
Bastard.
But okay.
Two masters, maybe
Masters, thank you.
We're losing it here,
We're
Marty.
losing it, Marty.
that may also be inappropriate. No more master, no more
Depends on how
master
you-
bedrooms.
Yes. How you interpret it, Marty? You're the chair.
When a subordinate died, I like this one. I just can't believe the stuff you read. When a subordinate died of COVID in 2020, this nurse's director of nursing set up a GoFundMe page, raised $27,000. She kept the donations for 3 years. Director misuse of position for personal gain. To resolve a violation, director paid $7,000 fine. Steve Matthew, you were going to research where they come up with these figures? Did you ever get
He
around to
gave the
that?
20,000 to the family.
She did,
He used the 27,000 to pay the fine.
right.
Yeah, I haven't found anything yet, Marty.
What's the rule on how long, it should have been closed out or sent, right? I've heard of these things happen before.
What is? Well, this was a municipal fine. It strikes me there's some illegalities here that go beyond
There's a lot of-
employment. There's some
I agree.
illegalities, and I don't know if those were being pursued separately.
That's a question I ask myself all the time when I read these, because some of them seem beyond abuse of position.
Right, but I think to Jessica's question, I think they can seek a money judgment in court
Mhm.
if you don't pay the fine. Like that's usually what these agencies do. Like I know Campaign Finance does that.
Mhm.
Oh, I
The
thought
fine-
you were asking about how long you can wait and sit on GoFundMe money.
Right,
Before giving it to the
my
people.
question was more
I
that,
said-
yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant how.
So you got the GoFundMe money, right? Like, whatever. Maybe they had to, the family went abroad or whatever, had to deal
The
with
problem
stuff
here was exacerbated because she used her position as the leader of
to
this
get the
agency
money.
to go have the public face to the GoFundMe that this is legit.
So that's the issue.
That's the issue for COIB.
That's the first issue,
Right.
right? There's many issues,
Right.
right?
But
okay,
there is a
okay.
fraud issue, whether she
Yeah.
intended to give the money over in the first
Ever.
place.
Mm.
And
Makes
I'm
sense.
sure they have
Agreed.
legal recourse should they go that direction. This is the one I
Right.
wanted to point out because it involved the community board specifically, and Board 6 gets involved in a number of these things. Manhattan Community Board 6 paid the okay, Manhattan Community Board 6 paid the architecture and design firm of a CB6 member, conflict right there. The member worked on the study for his firm, and presented the study to CB6.
I remember this.
Later chaired a meeting. That's not right. If you have a vested interest or you belong to an agency or whatever, he later chaired a meeting of CB6 Land Use and Waterfront Committee, which considered whether to recommend the study's findings. Member answered questions posed by the committee. Although the member recused from voting, he nonetheless violated the conflicts of interest law by communicating with the city agency on behalf of his private employer. So the mere act that he took the job, and he chaired a community board meeting with the matter affecting the member's private employer were considered. To resolve his violations, I have no idea how much money he made. If it was pro bono, it's even worse. The member agreed to pay $3,500 fine. So I found that one interesting. Anyhow, they're there for your enjoyment. And more. And more. They keep coming. I sent out today the city council spreadsheet. It is sparse because we have a brand new city council. And so there are 20, 30 items on it. Some of it deal with vetoes, and I couldn't determine whether or not the vetoes were a carryover, because everything on December 31st, there was a zero calendar. It was all wiped off. You got to start from scratch. That's why it's so sparse. So if I read the word veto, which I did, if I read the word veto, then I want to know whether I didn't go further. If that was an Adams veto, and now it's coming back to the city council to override that veto, or it's or our new mayor, Mamdani, hope I got that right, Mamdani, vetoed on his way in saying, I don't want these things.
Marty, I think the issue was Adams on his last day in office vetoed a number of bills, and it wasn't clear whether that ended it or whether it goes back to the council for an override. And I haven't heard anything subsequent to that discussion.
Well, my original belief as I read it was that the veto is coming back for a possible override. But then I don't know what the December 31st deadline means. Is it still an active bill? Or was the bill, I don't know.
Well, if
You can't veto, you can't override unless a veto took place. So he's been in 2 weeks now. I don't know the answer.
I don't know, and it'd be interesting to know whether there's any precedent in previous administrations, but
They did not
You would
leave as
think so.
friends, apparently.
I suspect the new corporation council will take a position if asked.
Do we have any unfinished business? Any new business? Any adjournment business? I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Anyone
I'd like to discussion.
You wanna discuss
discussion?
the adjournment?
Well, before the discussion, we have a quorum count.
We do, full
So
house.
that we can't vote.
I have a question, sorry. With regard to attendance, right? Chuck was on Zoom. Well, I have grade 3.
He's not ADA, I don't think.
Okay, exactly. So Marty, you're on Zoom, right? Like, but you're an ADA, I understand. Right?
And
Sylvia also?
Yep.
And Sylvia, okay. But Chuck is technically absent?
I'll play with that. I'll find out what the board has generally been doing.
Okay, so you'll follow up regarding whether or not Chuck accounts as present.
Right, as ADA or absent.
Yeah, I think
will double check.
there may be a term that Julie's using.
That's what I think is going on. I need to find that.
Despite my best efforts.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
All right. Except for Sergio, I believe the vote was unanimous. Our next meeting is February 9th. Happy Valentine's Day in advance.
Well,
And
are we
I
gonna
thank you
discuss
for attending and apologize again for not.
We missed you.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day is February 14th, by the way, so we'll
We'll see you, yeah, we'll see you
Right.
before then.
just FYI, for your marital accord.
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I'm gonna stop the recording.
Stop the record.
Yes, please stop.
Thank you
Yeah,
all.
delivery is something, right?
I hope to see you all tomorrow. I hope to be there.
Yes.